Um, Hi, like,
Hey,
why are you in my Zoom meeting?
like you're frozen crazy right now. But
No!
you're not like great. You're a little stop motiony, but like it's more fluid. It's fine though.
So let's get right into it. But before we get right into it, I do want to say, right here's when I'm going to edit in the clips of when we defended Blake Lively amidst the hate train she was getting, but we couldn't upload the episode because Andy Cohen blocked it for copyright reasons. When Blake Lively was on Gossip Girl, and people were like Leighton Meester and Blake Lively have like this feud. For example, the Gossip Girl executive producer Josh Safran was like Blake and Leighton were not
Josh
friends.
Safran?
But Georgina debunked it. So this is just another case of Hollywood pitting two women against each
Who is
other.
Georgina?
I think is
Okay.
her name. But the actress who played her to this feud that gets brought up a lot with Gossip Girl, she said, when we were filming, there was Leighton hates Blake, Blake hates Leighton, and blah, blah, blah. In reality, she said, we were all chill. It was cool. And then she said, Blake about the show, filming the show, she said they wanted us all to date. They wanted us all to wear the same clothes that we were wearing on the show. They wanted that because then it fed their whole narrative. People could buy into this world. So basically, what I've theorized, but it's pretty much proven, is that like the producers were pushing them to like hang out and like date and like be messy so that the show was better, which obviously happens a lot. But Leighton and Blake are very different people. That doesn't mean that they like were feuding or that they didn't get along. It just means that they weren't best friends like they were in the show. So AKA they're good at acting because they acted like good friends in the show. Um,
So this was like a non-feud
this was
feud.
a non-feud, but basically this rumor that Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively um were feuding on the set of A Simple Favor and on the press tour of A Simple Favor, it really gained traction after this TikTok by Celebrity Memoir Book Club. Okay. Hey, I saw your TikTok about Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, and I worked for Lionsgate at the time and can tell you the rumors are true. They hated each other. Anna in particular was really competitive with Blake and was constantly asking to make sure she got more promotion than Blake, and even made us Photoshop her cleavage in the Simple Favor poster to be as big or bigger than Blake's. So as we can see, I'm gonna call Diva on Anna.
Maybe they're just method acting, like, oh no, I think they maybe got stuck in the roles.
I think they
Like
got
they
stuck
got
in their
Austin
role.
Mullered.
Yeah. Someone at the studio claims they didn't get along slash weren't speaking, but it seems Anna may have been the competitive one. And then that's literally it. Like that's all I could find based on this like Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively feud. That's all I could find about it. And then other people were saying like, oh, it was so obvious they didn't like each other in the interviews on the press tour. But I think this is literally that is caused by something I like to call female humor blindness, which is when women are sarcastic and people don't think that women can be funny, so they take their sarcasm at face value and think that like they're serious. Basically, this interviewer had interviewed Blake earlier on for a Woody Allen movie. And she's the one who like asks, who's like, congratulations on your bump, because Blake had been public about her pregnancy. And then Blake goes, wow, congratulations on your bump, when like that lady wasn't pregnant. So it was just like kind of like an awful, like kind of mean girl, snarky, like interview moment. Um, but you know, pregnancy is hard.
That's really
So
true.
let's talk about that.
I also
But
like
it says Jersey replied, yes, I did. Next time I met her, I entered the interview room after another guy who right after got his interview confiscated. So that sort of implies that something bad had happened in the interview that before and the interview was confiscated. But that could mean literally anything. That could mean the interviewer like sexually harassed them or like said some weird shit to them and they had a bad reaction to it, obviously. Like it could mean anything. So I'm not going to take that as evidence either.
yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like all of this can be orchestrated, and
So Blake Lively innocent.
I fear if I were a public figure, I feel like my presence would be similar to hers. And that's why I'm like, I just don't need
That's
to ever be in front
awesome.
of the camera.
No, I
Like,
think you should. I think we need
like I
another one.
really feel connected to her.
But it's so fun. No, honestly, same.
Like
I
I
love
do.
her.
I really do. Like
I feel like we're kindred spirits.
I would
But yeah. So at its core, I just feel like this dogpiling of Blake Lively and making her out to be like this horrible mean girl for these fake ass feuds. It's just, Ben Davis said it best in this business. Until you're known as a monster, you're not a star.
yeah.
I think that like she has such a presence. She's so charismatic. She's so
Blake
beautiful.
Lively.
She seems very talented. Yeah. She apparently has like a lot of creativity like behind the scenes as well, which like we don't always know. And yeah, I just think that like because she's so involved and I think she's so passionate, like yeah, maybe she does get like a little heated on
You know,
set.
not everyone has to have a good personality. Like, is it such a crime? Is it such a crime?
Yeah, I mean, until we've like found rumors that she's like spit on the homeless, like I think we're fine.
Evidence of cannibalism.
Evidence of cannibalism. Yeah,
And honestly, maybe she just like needed to eat that day.
that's what I'm saying.
You know,
like,
maybe she needed to eat that
I don't
day.
think it's that dramatic. Like, I think it's
Yeah.
fine. So,
We not only defended her, we were like literally we like got it pretty close too. We were like, this is a fabricated personality by the media. The media has like created a personality for her. And we didn't like connect all. We connected like a lot of them, I think.
yup. And cheers to that. So, I'm
Cheers to
drinking
that.
some rosé because today's episode is a reading wrapped. And I love a little alliteration. And this was the only thing I had in my fridge. That was like a
I'm
fun.
drinking seltzer because it ends with an R. So it like bleeds seltzer reading wrapped.
Yes, seltzer
Mm-hmm.
reading wrapped. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I just moved into my new apartment and our Wi-Fi plan might not be great, so this might be choppity chop chop. But I would like everyone to know that my Wi-Fi network is named after Whitney Rose from The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's it called? Whitney Rose?
I'm not gonna disclose that because like what if one of my neighbors is
Yeah,
watching and they're like, I'm gonna mooch off that
that's
Wi-Fi.
true.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
true.
so how many books did you read?
I read 17. Will say though, there's a few like caveats to that number. One is that I count books as like books I finished, not books I started and finished. So 3 books that I finished this year, I started in 2023.
Okay.
But I still counted them. 2 of them were graphic novels. Not to say that they weren't like real books, but like they went like I think I read either both of them in a day or like one in one day, one the other. And then one was a children's book, but so it was Pete the Cat. No, it was I mean it was like a real book. Like it was like 100, 200 pages. I think I read it when I was in 5th grade. So like it wasn't like a picture book, but I counted it because I chose I'll talk more about why I read this book when I get there. But um I'm counting it as a book I read because I like chose to read it for myself and like sat my ass down and read it and it was a book.
Okay.
So
Got it.
that's my caveat to that number.
Okay. Since you read more books, how about you start us with your first book?
Okay, how many did you read?
Oh, I read 12.
Okay. I'll start with the first and there's a few that can like get grouped together. So I have it written down in my notebook. I'm actually gonna start with 2 because they work well together. I just had the page open. I know what they are. So the first book, I actually talked about both of these in the last year's episode because I started them last year. So What You Are Looking For is in the Library by Mashiko Ayoma and Having and Being Had by Eula Bliss. So What You're Looking For is in the Library is It's fiction. It's a very sweet book. It's Japanese. It's about like all these people who are like each chapter is a different person and they're all disconnected in the beginning. They're disconnected. They end up relating to each other. But like the
That
one
happened.
thing they all have in common is that like there's something in their life that like they're disappointed by and they all end up at the same library in their town. And like the librarian like they ask for one thing and the librarian gives them something else and they're like, what is this? And then like it ends up being like the thing they need. And it was just like really like sweet and very uplifting because I was reading it when I was like applying to work at library. I was like, oh my God, like the future is limitless. And then I ended up working at a library and I was like, wow, like I really like made that happen by reading this book. And it was just like really simply but like beautifully written and like beautifully because it was simple and simple because it was beautiful. And I just really liked her writing style. Yeah, very pleasant book. Also, I this year you can't see. I don't even know why I tried. I gave them all ratings out of five. I got so I gave What You're Looking For Is in the Library 4.5, and then Having and Being Had got 3.5.
Okay.
Um, I read it because Eliza McLam of Benchtopia was like, this is like one of the best books I read this year. I did not agree, but it was fine. It was just like about her life and about money mainly, and also just about like the modern like times and like capitalism and like neoliberalism and like what it means to be wealthy and like what it means to like not be wealthy and like how everything's relative. Like there wasn't anything wrong with it. It didn't blow me away, but
Hmm.
it was like a solid read, so 3.5. So those are my first two, and I think both of them I was almost done with by the beginning of the year.
Hmm.
So what was your first read?
So my first read was Children of Dune, which is the third book. It's the only book that I don't have on me right now, because I gave my copy to Hannah. Um, but it's the third book in the Dune series, and I think so far I've only read four, but it's my favorite. I can't tell you why exactly it's my favorite, but I think like part of it is because the two main characters are both like 10 years old. And there's like
Oh, that's
something
cool.
about that that's like cute and like coming of age, but they're also like so much smarter than 10-year-olds are. I'm not going to spoil why. I'm not even going to say who they are because if you read Dune, then, or if you're interested in seeing the movies, then like anything I say about them will be a spoiler. But it's just really cool and there's like cool wildlife in it and cool like environmental stuff and also political stuff. Um and yeah, it's really good. It was my favorite of the Dune books so far. Um yeah, that's all I have to say about that one.
Nice. Okay. Oh, my next one is the children's book I was talking about. So, the next one I read was When You Reach Me by Rebecca Steed or Stead. I don't know how you say it, but and I read it because I was working in the library and I was working in the children's section at the library and I was like putting books away one day and I saw it and I was like, "Oh my God, like I read this in 5th grade. Like it was really good. I wonder like how it's gonna hold up." So I just like flipped through it like while I was putting books away and I was like, "Yeah, like this eats." So I checked it out and read it and it's so good. I literally think like if you didn't read it as a kid, like you should just literally take like 2 hours and go read it. Um, it's like a time travel book. It's like this girl lives in New York in the 70s and her best friend starts acting weird one day and like there's this like homeless man on the Did you read it in school or
I
ever?
think so.
It's really good. Obviously. And like just all this stuff starts happening in her life and like it's about like just like friendship and like coming of age and like navigating I don't know, adolescence and that all that good stuff, but it was just like it's so well written. It like made me cry multiple times. I love time travel. It heavily references A Wrinkle in Time. That's the protagonist's favorite book, and like she carries it with her all the time. So yeah, like, and I was just like, oh, I wonder if this will hold up because I remember loving it as a kid, and like it just always like makes me happy when that happens because like I feel like a lot of like the books, like a lot of movies and shows that are like I liked as a kid, I definitely like will rewatch and be like, oh wow, that was really great. But books, like that's never happened before. Like I haven't really reread any books I liked as a kid until this one, and like I just yeah, highly
Hmm.
suggest it. So I think would I give it 4.5? Yeah.
Okay, nice. The next book I read is Norwegian Wood by
I read that
Haruki
last year.
Murakami. What?
I said I read that last year
Oh
or two
yeah.
years ago or something.
So this book is the first Murakami that I've read, and only so far, but I'll probably read more of him. Um, it's about this guy, who's like in his like first year of college, I think, and in Japan in the 70s. And he falls in love with his friend's ex-girlfriend. Well, his dead friend's ex-girlfriend, not really ex-girlfriend. And she's super depressed. And it's just like really, really heartbreaking and really sad. But it's also like there's so many beautiful parts of it that aren't like it's not all sad and depressing, but it is mostly that vibe. Um, and I really like it. And I read it as my dog was dying, and there's a lot of beautiful quotes about death in it. Um, let's see. Death was not the opposite of life. It was already here within my being. It had always been here, and no struggle would permit me to forget that. And that was like, I just found a lot of comfort in it. And like, there's a lot of talk about grief in it that was great, and I really liked, and I highly recommend it.
Nice. Well, guess what? Guess what my next book is?
What?
It's Win/Pinball by Murakami. We didn't
Wow.
even plan this. Um, Another book that I read because I was putting books away in the library and was like, oh, that's Murakami. I'll just read it because it's Murakami. Um, and it's a I honestly like of all the books I read this year, this is probably the one I remember least for reason. Not that I didn't like it, but I don't know why I don't really remember it that well. But it was like two novellas, I guess, make up a novel. Very Murakami, very like Norwegian Wood actually is like an exception to the Murakami rule in that I think nothing surreal or like fantastical happens in it.
Yeah.
But
Nothing.
most Murakami, like there's some element of like fantasy, which this one definitely had aliens. There were alien girls. Tell me what's next, aliens. But just beautifully written as he's wont to do. I really enjoyed it. It was very sad. It was very touching. There were a lot of moments that I definitely would have underlined if it weren't a library copy, and I gave it 4 stars. So yeah.
Nice. All right, my next book is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. And this is the
Mhm.
second book in the court of blah, 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 blah. And it's the last book that I read by Sarah J. Maas. Um, this, I will say, way better than the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I read mostly ironically. This book I read in conjunction with Ryan and Eileen, our two friends who like um Sarah J. Maas. Well, they like it in the same way that I like it, where we're both like, well, it's like not great, but it's fun to read. And this was fun to read. It took me not very long to get through it, although the first half of this year I was working as like a nanny, like after school, for these kids. So I never wanted to read this around them because it is like a smutty novel. So I didn't like I thought it would be weird if I like had it at work. Um, so I just like this was the
Wait,
only
I literally I'm gonna call back to that like at the end of this episode because I like had the same experience, but it'll be later.
okay. Um, but yeah, I like this book a lot, especially towards the end. Like it really picked up. But then for some reason, after I finished this book, I had no interest on carrying on and like reading the next book in the series. I don't know why, but I just didn't want to. I was just kind of like, I've gotten everything out of this that I think I will. I feel like all the books are gonna kind of be doing the same thing where it's like the characters get a little developed and like there's some cool scenes, cool battle scenes, some okay world building, okay magic system, like stuff like that, but it's not blowing me away. So I'm gonna put it down. I'm not gonna keep spending all my money and time on this. So that's how I felt about that book.
Yeah. I like really get that. I'm definitely someone who's like, I don't need to finish a series. I'll finish a book, but like see, even like shows, movies, whatever, like I'm like yeah, I get that.
Mhm.
My next book was also like a fun read. Wow, this is working out so well. And it was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. And girl, I just love Sally Rooney. I love Sally Rooney. I like her because she's all of her writing is very digestible, and it's like some of the only books that I find, me personally, like maybe some people disagree, that I'm like wrapped by, like that I really just cannot like stop reading. But it's not like bullshit, which I think is a very hard line to walk, of like being digestible but also still like making you like actually think about things differently. Um and so I really like this book. I mean, it's about like this, well, all her books are kind of about like normal people having relationships. And it definitely had the Sally Rooney, style of like God and fury and love and grief and capitalism and older women and older men. But I can't complain because it's Sally Rooney, bitch. Like that I love her down. Even this is actually the first book I read of hers, and I've only read one other book, but I still love her down.
I
What's
have a
your
question.
question?
I know
Yeah.
that in Normal People, she doesn't use quotation marks. Does she do that in all her books? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Got
Yeah. It's definitely it was because I read another one of her books later this year, and it's jarring for like the first 10 pages, but then it's like I kind of quickly catch on to like when it's dialogue and when it's not.
it. Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's about yeah, so it's okay. It's about just about a girl in college who's friends with her like childhood friend slash ex. And they meet this older couple who in the show is played by Jemima Kirk and Joe Alwyn, which rocks, but also in my head I envision them way older. They both like she has like this kind of like relationship with him. Her friend has this kind of relationship with her. There's emails back and forth. There's a lot of like crying sex. Like it's just good. Like it's just you read the Sally Rooney and it's just good.
You
Four
put the
stars.
crying with the sex and it's just good.
It's just good.
Like
And the
it.
Irish, ugh, like it's just good.
Um, wait, how many stars did you give it?
Four.
4. Okay. So, have you seen the show?
No, because yeah, you have to like pay for it. It's like on like Tubi or something. But I watch like Normal People the show.
Okay, yeah. I watched Normal People as well. I didn't read it though. Okay, my next book is
Me neither.
Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. And I picked this book up because I was um browsing Barnes and Noble, and I always like to read the like staff recommendation index cards, and I was in the sci-fi section because I just like wanted a sci-fi book. And this was like one of the staff recommendations, and I started reading it. I really liked it. And then I remembered that one of the stories is what the movie Arrival is based on, which is like one of our favorite books. That one is Story of Your Life. So that's like what the book is named for, pretty much. Basically, it starts, there's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight stories in it, short stories. And they're all kind of like sci-fi, but like, and some of them are like more heavily into like the science part, and some of them are more heavily into like spirituality. So one that I really liked was called Hell is the Absence of God, and it's about the experience of this world that is like our world, but in this world, like angels have been seen on Earth. Jesus was seen in Ohio. Angels have been like seen in Earth multiple times, and like they come down and they perform these like heavenly miracles, but that means like a different thing than like you would think, and it has like a lot of really crazy repercussions that you wouldn't expect. And it follows this one guy like dealing with his grief because his wife was killed in one of these miracles or one of these like angel sightings. And it's really, really well written. There are some um stories in here that like didn't get me as much. Like I think which one was it? It's either 72 Letters or The Evolution of Human Science, which is like about play or something, and I just like wasn't into it, so I just skipped that one.
Wait,
Um,
wait, good question. Clay with a C, play with a P.
Play with the C.
Okay.
Yeah. But the other ones that I liked are obviously Story of Your Life, which is what Arrival's based on, and Tower of Babylon, because that's a cool story, and then Understand, I think, is about like this guy who somehow becomes like the smartest person in the world, and it's like really cool. Anyways, so yeah.
That sounds so good. I want that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, my next two will go together because they're the two graphic novels. Girl, I took the Alison Bechdel pill this year, and thank God I did. So if anyone's familiar, which I'm sure everyone is with the Bechdel test, she's kind of like the origin, but it was like joke because she's like she has this like I forget I think it's like called like Dykes to Watch Out For. It's like this like because she's lesbian, writes a lot about being lesbian, like this like comic strip about like not just about being lesbian, but like that's like a minute and like I think the Bechdel like test. I don't know if this is true, but I think it was literally just like one strip and it was like kind of like a satire joke. People just ran with it and like made it into a real thing, which is fine. That happens all the time. But so if you know the name Bechdel, anyway, so these are two graphic novels. Are You My Mother is about like her mother mainly, and it's kind of like a letter to her mother, but it's a graphic novel, which I'll say before I get further into it, like I've never read a graphic novel before this,
What
except for
about
like, I mean, I've read
Persepolis?
like comic books when I was younger. Oh, you read Persepolis? Yeah, Persepolis. The library is really the star of the show this year because I was sitting at the desk with one of my coworkers and she was like, yeah, I randomly just like picked up a graphic novel the other day and it was so good. And I was like, what was it? And she was like, oh, it's Alison Bechdel. Do you know her? And I was like, I know of her. And she was like, yeah, like it's really good. Like if you want to read a graphic novel, you should read this. So I got Are You My Mother first, or maybe she read Fun Home, doesn't really matter. And it's mainly about her mother. Really good. I gave that 4.5. And then after that, I was like, well, I'm really into this. Let me read some more. So then I read Fun Home, which is kind of like her most famous one. Like that's what the musical Fun Home is based on. That was my first 5-star read of the year. Literally so good.
Whoa!
That was more about her dad, who was a closeted gay man and also pedophile, which she didn't find out till she was an adult. And then I actually don't remember correctly how he died. It was in a vehicle. I think it was a little bit like there's a little confusion about whether it was suicide or whether it was an accident, but it's basically like kind of reconciling with her relationship with her dad and with his sexuality and with her sexuality. And it's so good. Like I really recommend it to anybody, even if you think you're not into a graphic novel. Um, you really never know because I feel like the medium and like the format itself like could work for anybody if you like the content. I think it was more the content that I was like thrown off by, but like oh, it's so good. I like the musical a lot, like the music too. So I'd love to like see the musical one day. But
Hmm.
yeah, so that's
Nice.
Alison Bechdel.
All right, my next book is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. And I got this because I really like the cover, because this is one of the Penguin drop caps, which is a collection they did for every letter of the alphabet. They picked like a classic novel, and then the author's last name, the letter of that author's last name was made into like artwork, and that's what a drop cap is. And they're all really, really pretty and really pretty colors, and the pages are the same color as the cover. And I love that. Um, but I had also heard of the book before, and I thought it sounded really interesting. And it's about Chinese immigrants to San Francisco, and it's about like mother and daughter relationships. And it's really, really beautiful. It's a bunch of different stories like about those women. It's about like the mothers and then the daughters. And I got a little bit confused and like would have to go back to like the page that tells you who is whose mother and who is whose daughter whenever I was reading. So it was like a little bit confusing with all the names to remember, but all the stories in it are like so interesting and like beautiful. So I highly recommend this one to anyone.
Oh, nice. All right. It's time for my second 5-star read. My favorite book of the year. The book. I read Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. Yup. I actually this is the third book that I had started last year, but I had read 300 pages by the beginning of 2024, and then I read the remaining 700 pages pretty much between, I want to say, like whenever I finished Fun Home, which was I think in like April or May. So like May to July was the bulk of this book, which um I don't know, I like that I stretched it out over such a like large period of time because I would like go and read other things in between. But I like don't even know what to say about this book. Like I loved it so much. And you know, it has the reputation of being Infinite Jest. Like I don't think I really need to say more. And I've known about Infinite Jest my entire life. And known it as the reputation that it has. Um, and then one day last year, like last meaning August of 2023, so 2 years ago now. I went to the library, was like, I'm gonna go check out a book, and I saw this there, and I was like, why not? I really like postmodern literature. Like I've read his short stories in classes before. I was like, I know I'm gonna like this, but like I have to take the pill. And it like genuinely like changed my life as much as like a book can. Like I think about it all the time. Um, and for it to for anyone who doesn't know what it's about, I guess it's like kind of hard to explain what it's about, but it is kind of like there is sort of like a linear like plot to it, but it's mainly about like this one family, I guess you could say, like and like within that family, this one kid who's like a tennis prodigy, and they live at this tennis school, him, his younger brother Mario, and his mom, um, and then his dad who had like killed himself the year before, put his head in the oven, and how the main protagonist, if you could say, like, is the one who finds him, or maybe it's the younger brother, I don't know. And they have an older brother somewhere, and it's years in the future. Like Canada and the US are like at war, but there's also like the Onan, like there's a whole like different political structure, everything. And can I just say, David Foster Wallace predicted like so many things in like insane accuracy, like because this was written in the 90s, like streaming, like they stream movies the way really similar to how we do now, but like it was that technology like was not like really conceivable back then, like that you have like machine like phones basically, they call them interfaces, but like I like it just oh my God, like I can't even like, and it's like so much about like addiction and entertainment and media and like love and family and politics and war and destruction. Oh, it's just so good. Like if it's one of those books that if you read the first 10 pages, you'll know if it's something you're into or not. And I could see why like people would be like turned off by it because it definitely is like not the most like inviting writing that's nice at times, and it's really silly in a lot of ways too, which I under like I could get why people would be like, this is fucking stupid, like I'm not like reading this shit. Like there'll be like 10 pages that are just like a fake like transcript of like a puppet show, but like if it is something that like seems to tickle your fancy, like even just like reading like half of it, I think is honestly like worth it. But yeah, so good. So good. Um and then Grace dressed up as him for Zeitgeist Fall.
Yes, I did.
Well,
I
half
dressed
of
up
him.
as Billy Foster Wallace. So him and Billy Wilder.
Yes.
Um, yeah. Okay, my next book is God Emperor of Dune, the fourth book in the Dune series, and so far my least favorite. Um, Not for any particular reason. It's, the same notes. It hits kind of the same notes as the other books. Um, so I was expecting to I should have liked it a bit more. I really liked it in the very beginning, but a lot of it is about first of all, it takes place like 4,000 years after the previous book. So it's kind of hard for me to like get my bearings in that when there's a huge time skip like that. Um, and it's also about the main character is like part sandworm, kind of. Um, and you kind of just have to read it to like understand why and how that works. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely like typical Dune, typical Frank Herbert writing style and plot. So very confusing and a lot to keep up with. Um, but I liked it. I didn't dislike it, and I am going to read the next one because I already bought it. Um, so yeah, I don't really have much to say about it though. Like most of these books. I did like it though. Just not as much as the other
Nice.
Dune books.
I'll add I started the first Dune and just decided the time wasn't right. Doesn't mean I won't go back to it ever, but I dipped my toe in.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. Okay, what was my next one? Oh, my next one actually was one that you read last year. Again, the fucking live. Like, actually, I think almost every book on my list were books that were just like the library just gave to me. Um, I was like checking out or checking in books, and one of them was Little Weirds by Jenny Slate, and I texted you a picture. I was like, "You read this?" And you're like, "Yeah." So I read it. Um, this might have been actually like my least favorite book of the year, which like not to say it was terrible. I just think I read some bangers this year. But I didn't like it. I just didn't I love Jenny Slate and I think a lot of what I like about her is like the presence as a whole, and I don't think her voice really came through, which is ironic because she does a lot of work to establish a unique voice. But to me, I just felt like I could have done with maybe one or two of the essays, but reading them in rapid succession just kind of like it didn't really come together for me. And I think a lot of it, and this is like what I'm about to say is like it's fine. It's not a criticism of the book, but like when things have a really distinctly Trump's first presidency feminist like um feel to them, like that's something I noticed, which is like and like like again there's nothing wrong with like that. I'm not saying like oh like white women like liberal white women have nothing to complain about because like that I think that's like a stupid thing to say, but I do think some of the times she was like the things that she had to say about gender and about feminism, maybe they hit hard at the time, but they were just things I didn't need to hear again.
Hmm.
So yeah, but I mean like it was pleasant in a lot of ways. It just like I kind of didn't the big picture didn't really form for me.
Hmm. I disagree. I really liked that book. I thought her writing, like, I thought her voice really came through. And I thought, like, and I don't even know that much about Jenny Slate. Maybe that's why I didn't have a problem with that. But I mean, I don't know. I really saw her in it. I feel like I got to know her. And I do think that the essays came together. But that's just me.
No, it's fair.
Okay,
I gave that, by the way, 2.5 stars, which was low. But I mean, I that's what I said at the time, so I meant it because these were
okay.
not retrospective ratings.
Okay, my next book is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Gran. And this is what the movie that Martin Scorsese made um is based on. And I got this. Ooh, I just hit my computer really hard. I got this book because I think I saw the movie before I bought this book. I definitely saw the movie before I read the book. And I love the movie so much. It's a beautiful movie, visually stunning. It's heartbreaking. It's literally devastating and like makes you question like what like all of humanity. It's like so crazy how evil the people in it are. And I was interested in like learning more, so that's why I read the book. And this is like I think the first completely like nonfiction book that I've ever read just for like pleasure. Pleasure is kind of a bad term for it because it's not pleasing to read because it is so like insanely tragic. It's like unfathomably tragic. Um, but it's also written in a really great way that you like wouldn't expect a nonfiction book to be written in. Like it has some poetic moments and it's a really, really captivating story. And I think like everyone should read it, low key. Um, Definitely one of my more memorable books of the year. And probably like top three. I read it really fast. I like read it mostly on the train to class. Um, so really great way to start your morning. That's a joke. And yeah, I think everyone should read it and I think everyone should see the movie because they both have two different things to offer. This one focuses more on sort of the investigation, whereas the movie focuses more on the like love story or the story of the relationship between what's his name? Burkhart and Molly, um, which is also beautiful. I think they both like have so much. I like how they're so differently focused, but also focused on the same, obviously the same event and the same themes. So I recommend it.
Yeah, I really want to read that. I guess I'll wait for the next one, the next Zoom to
I
keep
think that
going
you
because
should start saying
I
it
don't
so
think I'll
that
be
you
able
get cut off.
to. Okay. Um, so my next book I read also like similarly like not nonfiction but like unfathomably like horrible like the world like wow the world is like this and is structured in such a way um and like just like so upsetting but also like so beautiful. If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. I love James Baldwin, made like one of my favorite authors. And again, I just was in the library and was like, I want to read James Baldwin, what do we got? And this is what we had. I didn't know anything about it. The it was made into a movie a few years ago, so I think like that's kind of like how it's gotten like more popular. But I mean, he can't write like a bad book. Like they're all so good.
Hey, welcome
And
back.
so as I was saying, anyways, um, yeah, if Beale Street Could Talk, so good. It's about this young Black woman living in New York City with her family. And when I say young, like 19, and she meets this, well, she actually doesn't meet him. She's like her childhood friend, this boy, well, now man named Sunny. They end up like falling in love and she gets pregnant and he gets falsely convicted of raping a woman. Um, and the book is basically, it's kind of, if I'm remembering correctly, like it's like present and past. So like the present is like her visiting him at in jail and like they're awaiting trial, and then the past is like sort of like them falling in love with each other and like the early days of the relationship where like everything is so like sweet, but there are still um like it's still there's still very much like young Black people living in New York in I think the 60s. and like they like are still like dealing with like harassment from the police, like on like smaller levels for being like store owners accusing them of like stealing stuff. And then this happens where he like was falsely accused, and then now he's in jail waiting trial. And like the whole book is sort of like them trying to gather evidence like in his favor. And then her mom, the main character Tish, her mom ends up going to Puerto Rico because the woman who accused Sonny of raping her, um or is it yeah, it's Puerto Rico. It was from Puerto Rico and like had traveled back there. And so the mom like goes to her and like has this like really like beautiful conversation with this woman that's like, and the woman is completely convinced because she was raped. She was completely convinced like that it was um who she like accused. And like this moment where it's like they're connecting like mother and like obviously not her daughter but a daughter, and then like at the end you realize like she's still is believes that he did it, like, and like you think it's going to go one way and doesn't go that way. And then the book is, it's inconclusive. It doesn't get, it ends like right before the trial, but like it's not like looking good in his favor, and it's very bleak, um and just like devastating, but also like just like in James Baldwin fashion, like still so like hopeful in a way, and like ugh, I don't know, just so like doesn't like so focused equally on like the love that they have for each other, and like the conviction, like no matter what happens to them, no matter what the world says, like they know the truth and like they know what is right. So yeah, really, really good book. That was another five.
Nice. Have you seen the movie?
No, I haven't actually.
I think I like started the movie, but for some reason I couldn't finish it. But I think I
I want
will
to.
watch it at some point and probably read it
Yeah.
as well. Okay, my next book is The Favorite Game by Leonard Cohen. And I went on Goodreads at the end of the year to like I didn't finish my 2024 reading challenge. I wanted to read 15 books and I only read 11. But one of the books I read was really long and really dense, which we'll get to later. But anyways, this book is the least read book on Goodreads out of all the books that I read this year. I think only like 10,000 people
Oh.
have read it, which is really surprising because it's by Leonard Cohen. And the reason I read it is because I love Leonard Cohen. And this book did not disappoint. It's very much like what you would expect a Leonard Cohen book to be. Um, it's about this boy, I forget his name, honestly. I let's see. Breveman, that's his last name. And he's this boy from Canada. And it goes through a little bit of his childhood, but it mostly focuses on his like young adulthood, and teenagerhood and his like relationships. And there's a part where he goes and he works at a summer camp. And I always love when people work at summer camps in any piece of media, because that's so me. And something really, really, really tragic happens at the summer camp, which is also like so not me, but people that I know from the camp that I worked at. And I really just I like this book a lot. I read it also on the train, like going to class. It's a really easy read. There's a lot of beautiful, it's like sometimes hard to understand because it is like so like poetic. Um, and he's definitely more focused on style than like making the plot easy to understand. But that's not a downside. That's I liked that about this. And yeah, I recommend this book if you're into that. If you like Leonard Cohen, you'll like the book. Whoa, I just accidentally like
Nice.
threw
I
it.
love going.
Did you hear that? It like flew out of my hand. That was Leonard's ghost.
Okay, the next book I read was Holidays on Ice by David Sedaris. Um, Funny guy, love him. I'm trying to think of like what I know I read something before this of his that like made me like him, or maybe I just like Amy Sedaris, funny family, which I thought my entire life that they were married, and that's just like they're just siblings. But anyway, it's I read it in August, which is funny because it's like a Christmas book. And it's just like a collection of four, it's very short. It's a collection of four essays. Two are like um narratives from his life. Like one is like when he was working as like Santa's elf at in like maybe like FAO Schwartz or like Macy's or something like that. And then like others are like a fake sermon that this like actor like delivers to this like poor church trying to like basically trying to like get money from them for to make them like want to make a movie about someone from their town. And like just like funny like a funny like holiday like letter that like a family sends out about like oh here's our like the state of our family this year, but it's like fucking ridiculous. And yeah, it was really good. He's really funny. He's like definitely is not contemporary, but what are you gonna do? In that like he uh says some jokes that let's just say wouldn't fly with the woke left. But it's funny, so I don't care. Um, but this book was it was a really fun read for me because I brought it to my trip to Idaho on my trip to Idaho because it was like small and it would like fit in things. So and so yeah, I was like, I can bring it hiking, whatever. And then I didn't end up reading it till the plane ride back, which good thing because I had dropped my phone in a lake the other day and I was told the plane had movie screens. So I was like, yay, like at least I can like watch a movie. It was a 5 hour flight, by the way. And then I get there and it's like access media on your device. And I was like, yeah, you're fucking joking. So this, I think I want to say 130-page book was all I had for that 5 hour flight. So I was reading it so slowly because like, and I would read like a page and like close it and like think and like read
Oh
another
my
page.
God.
So I stretched out that book for the whole 5 hour flight. But yeah, it was really good.
Nice.
Would have liked to have read it during like Christmas time, but what do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, what can you do? Okay, my next book is called The Castle of Cross Destinies by co girl Italo Calvino.
Oh, I like him.
Yeah, this was my least favorite book of the year. Because I read it on the train. I think I just like, but it was like mid-semester, whereas these other ones are like earlier in the semester. I mean, maybe that's a factor, but maybe it's just the style of writing or the content. Um, but yeah, I didn't lock into any of the words. Like I would find myself reading like 4 pages and then being like, wait, I have literally no idea what's going on. I need to go back. I wasn't paying attention. Um, and I don't think that's entirely my fault or the fault of the train. I think it's the fault of how this book and I don't get along. But on a plus side, there are really cool illustrations of like old tarot cards that I really liked. But other than that, yeah, I don't remember a single thing about this book. Like seriously, I don't know anything about the plot. But yeah. So I can't personally recommend that. But I
Yeah,
feel
that
like
sounds
yeah,
like Italo Calvino.
yeah.
But his other book that I read, If on a Winter's Night Traveler, sounds like that, but like m more friendly. Um, but yeah. Okay, the next book I read was Brutality is a Love Story by Margot Steins. And this was a book that when I was reading Infinite Jest on my Kindle, because I was not lugging that thing around, thank you. It would always, when it would like shut off, it would be like recommended for you, Brutality is a Love. I was like, fine, you really want me to read this book? So I did. It was a memoir by this woman who, and is just like a writer, which I always think is cool when it's a memoir, but it's not like a famous person. Um, and I actually feel like I need to like read the back cover to like get it like like accurately like synopsize it because there's just like a lot going on. Basically in the meantime, she's has like kind of the overarching theme of the book is like her relationship to pain. She was a dominatrix as a teenager in New York City and was also like addicted to every substance at some point in her life, like eating disorders, up and down, all kinds of illnesses, whatever, what have you, and then enters into this abusive relationship with this man who wasn't a client of hers, but was like involved in some way, like in her being a dominatrix when she was underage. And she goes and lives with him on a farm and she tries homesteading, and he's abusive in so many ways. And but she kind of like craves that, but like knows that like it's like the flaw in that logic, like there isn't logic there. And then she eventually um finds like this other man who is like her current partner who she's having a baby with, and written it's also written kind of like two parts, present and past, and the present storyline is her and her current partner, um and she's pregnant. And so that each chapter begins with like a passage about like what's currently happening. And it's really interesting because she wrote it during 2020, like during the pandemic. So like she's like oh my god, streaming, like lively detailing, she's live tweeting like things that are going on like in 2020 pandemic related and like just like otherwise, and while she's having this baby, and kind of like contrasting this like love that she found that is real and doesn't want to hurt her, and like reconciling like with like how can she like accept a love that doesn't want to destroy her, but like ultimately like letting that into her life after like a lifetime of like pain and abuse and assault. um so I guess I kind of synopsized it to the best of my ability. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot. It was very overwhelming at times, but it was supposed to be. And I think like not that like, oh, you shouldn't just focus on like pain and like darkness and trauma. This isn't to say that, but I think like the balance of her like finding this like love that is like was so healthy, like was what like really redeemed it for me. Um, and I really realized that I really enjoy reading about things that I have no, like I don't relate to at all. Enjoy, again, like that's not the word, but like I find it really fascinating to like be like, this is so far from how I feel, but it's like I'm getting like your perspective on why you would feel this way because it's something I just haven't, like, not that I never will, but like I haven't. So that was really interesting. Um, so yeah, it was a read.
How many stars?
4.
What is it called again?
It's called Brutality's a Love Story. The writing was a little MFA because she's an MFA. Um, but aren't we all?
Yeah,
All's
totally.
coming from
Like
inside the house.
we definitely are all. Um, okay, my next book is the book of the year, my 5-star read, my life-changing book. And that is The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It is like 800 something pages, super, super, super dense. Took me literally like 3 months to read. Yes.
I started it today.
Oh my God, wow. That's so exciting.
Yeah, that's it.
Um, and it's basically the best book ever written. I just started Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, and one of the things he says in it is like, this guy, yeah, go ahead.
You can finish your thing, but then I'll when you're done with this, I'll say my things. I think it might be similar.
Okay. In this book, he says that this guy the main character in Slaughterhouse-Five, meets this guy who really likes science fiction, and he also says that everything you can learn about life is in The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. But now that is not enough. Um,
Whoa.
and I was like, that's crazy that I literally just read that book. Like, whoa.
I just got that in the biggest way.
I just got that in the biggest way. Um,
Um,
because it's like so true. Oh, girl, my student ID just came up on my screen for no fucking reason. That was so weird. Like my picture was really jarring. I wish that I was screen sharing in that moment because that was really funny. But yeah, I love Russian. I love the Russian language. I love Russian movies. I was just in a full class just about Andrei Tarkovsky, and there was a girl in this class who's 30 years old, and in one of her monologues that she gave, she talked about the brothers Karamazov, or she talked about Dostoevsky, and I literally pulled out the book and I was like, Megan, like, I'm literally reading that. We were like, oh my God, like, that's crazy. And then later on in one of her monologues again she like referenced brothers Karamazov and she spoiled something for me, but I was like it's honestly fine because you can't really spoil anything in this book. Like it's just like it's not about that. It's like I don't even know. It's everything. Bitch, you're everything.
bitch,
Um
you're everything.
bitch, you're literally everything. And what do I have to say? Like it's just everything. Like it's so human and it's so family and it's so depressing, but the epilogue is like not depressing, even though they're literally at the funeral for a child in it. Um, it's like hopeful and yeah, I cried. So that's always a plus. Yeah, I think it's like my favorite book. So the end. Yes, go ahead.
But really excited to keep going. But like one of the first things I clocked, I was like, Infinite Jest like references this, like they're connected. Because Infinite Jest is three boys, and their dad, like the dad is dead, but like it's so much about the three brothers and the relationship with the dad. Not that that makes it the same, but the description of Alexei, the youngest brother, it was so much like Mario, the youngest in Cadenza brother. And I looked it up and it was like, I mean, it's not like proven, but like people have like written about that before. And also Infinite Jest like directly does reference it like in other moments. So like that like it's everything's connected.
Nice.
Like both are the books.
Yeah.
They're holding hands. Um but yeah, I'm that's awesome. Oh, I read Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Big book this year, big it book. Yeah, it was great. Gave it 4.5 stars. It's about it's so it's very loosely and not loosely, it's inspired by David Copperfield. Um, but it's Demon Copperhead. And so instead of it being about a poor boy in England in the century of past, it's I don't know, I'm not quite sure about that. It's about like this uh poor boy in Appalachia and current or not current actually because 9/11 happens during it, but like the 90s. Um and just like his life growing up, his dad is dead. Um, his mom is like an addict and she loves him, but it's not working, and she has this abusive boyfriend, and like it's just like his life is just like awful. Like it's just like he just takes hit after hit, but um, as David Copperfield does, but like it's just such a like well-written story, and it's like I mean it's you're just I don't know, in a way it's like you kind of like know that it's gonna be okay in like the weirdest way, which I think a lot of that maybe can be attributed to the writing, which like I said, like if I were to criticize this book, like there's something a little like sappy about like almost like Disney's the wrong word to use, but like something along those lines of like this almost feels a little like too light for like how dark it is, and it's not really like portraying these things that are happening like I think the way that they should be, but like that's pretty nitpicky because I do think it's like a book that will like appeal to a mass audience, which I think over like in general is good because it's like I think a lot of people which like the book like deals with heavily are very quick to write off like the South and like say like oh well it's just like a bunch of racist white people living there, and I think it like does it's a very good counter counteract to like I don't know if that's the word to like the Hillbilly Elegy by JD Vance in a way. But yeah, really
Our vice
good.
president?
But yeah, Vice President JD Vance. Yeah, I would definitely recommend reading it. Like it's a great story, like if for nothing else, but like it's a lot more than that. Like you'll definitely get a lot out of it. But yeah.
Nice. Um, my other books that I read this year are actually plays. And they are two one-act plays by Chekhov, and those are The Marriage Proposal and The Bear. Both very funny, great one-act plays that I read in my playwriting class. And then the third Chekhov was Uncle Vanya, classic. Um,
Classic.
I knew about it from Drive My Car, which I love that movie. They're putting on a production of Uncle Vanya in that movie. Um, and I honestly like I don't think I like read all of that play because I think I just kind of watched the movie that was also assigned and I didn't have time to do both of those things. But loved the production of it. It was or like the movie version was Vanya on 42nd Street. I'm maybe getting that wrong, but very good. Wallace Shawn plays Vanya. And then the other book play that I read was Loot by Joe Orton. I also don't think I like finished that one. I think I like didn't have time. Um, so yeah. But yeah, I took a playwriting class and I read a lot of plays. I read other plays, but I don't know what I didn't have like physical copies of them. They were just like the teacher sent out PDFs of them. So,
Mhm.
yeah. This is
I
my
love
Chekhov.
plays.
This is my Chekhov. I'm
Ugh.
planning to like read more of the plays in here.
Do you remember that play that we read in AP Lit? I think it was Chekhov. Oh, the man and the dog, the woman and the dog.
Yeah.
That ate.
Yeah.
It was something like that. It was really good. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was Chekhov.
Mm-hmm.
So good. I love plays.
I do too. I like Russian anything,
I
so
love Russian. Um, yay, Russian. Actually, whoa, speaking of which, like this is crazy. This keeps happening. My next book is City of Thieves by David Benioff and is about a boy in Russia during World War II. This is
oh,
another, I think, like it book, but like it like few years ago. Like, yes,
I have to say, David
Grace.
Benioff was one of the writers of Game of Thrones, and he did us as fans of Game of Thrones so dirty that although I'm very happy for you that you like this book, I assume. But I just can't condone his actions. So I don't think I'm ever gonna read this book.
Ooh. That's okay. I can't speak to that. And I'm sorry that happened. Uh, I'm not co-signing everything he's done, but he wrote a good book. Yeah, so it's about this like teenager in Russia during World War II. And he gets uh oh he so yeah, so they shoot down like a British, no, not British, sorry, German plane, and he and his like friends who are like part of the army like loot one of the dead soldiers, and then he gets taken away for looting. And he gets sentenced basically to death. And he's in this holding cell, and he meets this other, also like 20, he's like 16, I think. Then he meets this like 20-year-old kid who has been arrested for deserting. And they uh the general or something or someone was like makes a deal with them that's like, if you can get me a dozen eggs in a week for my daughter's birthday cake, I won't execute you. We won't execute you guys. Um, and so it's kind of just like the story of those two kids, men, uh, on the hunt for a dozen eggs in the face of World War II. Um, and also the main character is Jewish, so like that adds like another level to everything. And it's really good. Like it's just a really good book. I don't like have that much to say about it. A really good story. That's like probably my biggest, like the thing I like the most about it is just like I love a good like I love a book where nothing happens, but equally love a book where things happen. And I just think the premise is so good. Like it's so simple, like but it's like they have a task. It's find a dozen eggs in a week. And like I think that's just like a really great setup for the book. And it's also a really interesting thing about it is the first chapter is takes place in like current times, and it's this guy, and he has been tasked to write an autobiography. He's a writer, and he's like, my life isn't interesting. I'm going to go talk to my grandpa who is in Russia during World War II. And so it's his grandpa's story. So it's like, the whole time that he survived and that he has had children and grandchildren, but it's like, how does it get
I
there?
love when that
So yeah,
happens. I
yeah,
love when
really good
that
book.
happens. That's cool.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh shoot,
Um,
we got. Mm,
yeah, we got 9 minutes, but I
well,
only
we can make another one because you
no,
can
I
just
only
make.
have one more book. So,
Oh, I have like three more.
okay. And I didn't even finish this book, but well, I finished it, but I didn't finish it during 2024, so I'm not even gonna actually talk about it. But it's Orbital by Samantha Harvey. It won the Booker Prize. I got it for free at my uncle's house because my uncle was the publisher of this book, and he had like a whole stack of it, and I started reading it with my friend Annika in the middle of the party, and he saw me reading it, and he was like, "You can just take that home." And I was like, "Okay." So, free book, and it's really, really good. I would have paid money to read it too. So, but I'm not going to talk about it until next year.
Clock that.
Got it.
Okay, so I have three more. I'll go fast. Maybe I can do it in 10 minutes. Eight, nine, seven. Next book was Me Talk Pretty One Day, which is by David Sedaris. Because I just owned a copy of it. I needed something to read. It was there. Great. Another collection of short stories, not Christmas this time, just general general hilarity. Yeah, he's a really good writer, like on top of being very funny. So yeah, definitely like not that I would want to like write something like that, but like inspiration if I ever were to like write like narratives about my life and like essays about my life, because he just like has a really like um I don't know, like interesting like ways of like what he chooses to focus on and like take meaning from in his life. So yeah, great book. All right, so this next one, like I need a fucking cigarette for this one. This is also like the only one I have with me. I do own like a few of these, but I just was like, if I only got two hands, this is what I'm bringing down. So I read Crash by J.G. Ballard, and everything else got a rating. This one got a question mark. Um, so I've been right, this book has been recommended to me, I think a few times, but the one I can remember is by my friend Rachel's boyfriend, and we have like a lot of similar tastes in like reading books and everything kind of, but um, we both really like postmodern literature, and I really like this book, Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs, which is like kind of like in the realm of this of just like gross, grotesque, abject, like body the like everything. And so he told me like I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, was usually Crash by J.G. Ballard, and then like it came up again like on my TikTok, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah. And I think like actually this might be the most disturbing book I've ever read, which is funny in a way because there were other books that were kind of like objectively worse, if that's even like possible to say. But maybe I'm only saying this just because I don't think I really liked Crash that much, but I also really did. And so for those of you who don't know, it's about car crash fetishes and fetishists, and fetishes. A guy, normal man, whatever, normal, gets in like a near fatal car crash, and then after that develops a fetish for all things automobile, but specifically crashes, and then like gets roped in by this like man named Vaughn, who is like the kingpin of car crash fetishists of London, should such a group exist, and kind of like ropes him in to this like realm of society, and um his Vaughn's like ultimate plan is to die in a collision with Elizabeth Taylor, the actress, and to kill her in it. And that's kind of like his grandmaster plan, obviously, because that's he wants to die in it. So that is his grand master plan. And I mean, it's like disgusting. Like it's very graphic. And it's very also has like a lot of poignant observations about technology. Like I did like underline a lot actually, which is like funny because I'm like, oh, I didn't like it, but like I was gagged at every turn apparently because I'm underlining fucking everything. Um, but it was like I would like read it like this basically. I think it's a really, really interesting look though at like someone who's like on the cusp of like polite society and like kind of like the most like taboo, like abject, like shunned, like camp you can be in, which is, sexually like attracted to crashes and people like dying in car crashes and staging crashes for like sexual gratification. And I love a fetish. One thing about me, I love a fetish. I'm so fascinated by them. So I was really fascinated by this book, but like don't think I like exhaled once while reading. And this is another book that I like brought to babysitting one day. Opened it, read the first sentence. I was like literally can't. Like I like actually was like I couldn't even like read this like in my own room without like feeling like so uncomfortable. But I mean, it really made me feel a lot. So, like, I'll give it that credit. Again, the question mark stands. I don't like really know how to rate it. I think it would be a really good book to like be assigned like an excerpt of for a class,
Hmm.
But like, it was just the constancy of it was like so much. And then okay, I'll just what, I'll finish it up. One more book. Yes.
I have to say, I'm surprised that you put like a question mark because I feel like as you were reading it, you were constantly texting us like, "Oh, I can't hang out because like I'm reading this book, Crash, and I'm really into it," and like blah 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 blah. Like I thought that you were really enjoying it as you
Did I
were,
say that?
yeah, a few times.
Maybe I just was like, I want to like read it because I want to like I mean, I was kind of like addicted to it. I will say that. It's like a crash. Can't look at it, can't look away.
It,
I just got that in the biggest way. Um, so yeah, I think I want to like read it if I may. This we might have to start another thing, but I like if I may like read a quote just to like get a sense. Um, like so many like gagging lines like this. Catherine, who's his wife, Catherine saying once that she would never be satisfied until every conceivable act of copulation in the world had at last taken place. Like she wouldn't be satisfied until every act of copulation had taken place. Just like, okay. I never thought about that. I just got that in the biggest way. But I do like need to find like okay. This is kind of tame, but I feel like I'll get like actually don't think I can say this,
No, go ahead.
but I underlined that it was just like so much. Everything was like car was sex and sex was the car. Everything is sex except for cars, which are sex. But don't you know car? Yeah. The passenger compartment enclosed us like a machine, generating from our sexual act an homunculus of blood, semen, and engine coolant. My finger moved into Helen's rectum, feeling the shaft of my penis within her vagina. I don't know if they allow those words. These slender membranes, like the mucous septum of her nose, which I touched with my tongue, were reflected in the glass dials of the instrument panel, the unbroken curve of the windshield. So it's always just like her body was like a car, and that car was like her body. That also kind of tame, but just like a sense.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie of Crash?
No, I'm not like dying to, but it's David Cronenberg, so could be cool.
I love Cronenberg, so
So also I just texted Grace this, but like I don't know why I thought you like couldn't say like semen or like penis on YouTube. I the guy was like getting my wires crossed and like thought it was like the radio, which I still think you can say those words because they're not like those are just like bodily things. But I was like, we're gonna get banned. Andy Cohen's gonna get us if I say the word semen. Okay, my last book was Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. She came back for me because after Crash, I was just like, I need something chill. Um, and yeah, it was really good. Chess. It was a chess book. Um, it was about two brothers, um, Peter and Ivan, and um, shockingly takes place in Ireland. And the older brother, Peter, is like 30 something, successful lawyer, but also like substance issues and like dates like this 20-year-old girl and like wants to kill himself. And then the younger brother is like socially awkward, like incel past, chess prodigy, and their dad just died. Like it opens at the funeral, um, and it alternates chapters. So it starts with Peter, and then it's Ivan's chapter, and it's Peter's chapter, and it's Ivan's chapters. And you know, in Sally Rooney fashion, it's normal people living their normal lives. So it's a like they have relationships with people, and then those relationships fall apart, and then they rebuild them. And yeah, it was good. Like I don't really have much to say other than I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. I do think the Peter chapters were like I was groaning, like I was eye rolling a little bit because he has this like she does a really good job at establishing his voice. Um, but it's his voice is very much like he like how do I explain this? I don't know how to explain it other than like OCD brain. Like I'm stepping on the plane. I'm stepping on the train platform. Fuck, think my mother, talk to mother. Like, that was so, I butchered that. But like, and there were points where I was like, this isn't really believable. Not, but like, it doesn't have to be because it's a book, because it's fiction, but it's like, I think it would have been more interesting if there were ever moments where there was like a pause where you could just like take a breath because at the end of the day, like that, like reality is like you have like people like there are those pauses and like those respites like are so like meaningful. I don't know if I'm like articulating this well, but like there was something I just didn't buy about the constancy of his voice, and his like internal monologue that it was just like a little over the top to me. A lot of like also like God references and Jesus references and allusions, which is fine in itself, but like I feel like as someone who like and like you might relate to this, um grew up like exposed to Tumblr and like that like realm of like the literary world of like literally like kids and teenagers writing in the room. So it's like not a big deal, but like feeling like being exposed to a lot of literature that just sort of like throws religion in there without like actually like having like it feel sincere or like really having like much meaning beyond simply just like putting like religious imagery or like um I don't know, a crucifixion in it. So I'm just like a little wary at this point. Not saying that Sally Rooney did that, but like he mentioned God and like the second page, and I was like, oh my God. But I mentioned that to my mom, and she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, yeah, this is like, I feel like it's such like a younger person like thing to say. She was like, what do you mean? Like he just talked about God. Like that's like a normal thing that books do. Um, but yeah, I liked it. Could have been like 50 pages shorter, I think, but yeah,
Hmm.
good book.
So overall, we had a great reading year. We read a lot and we learned a lot.
We learned a lot.
Um, I don't
So I
really
think
know how to
we're
end this.
um well, do you have any like goals for next year, like reading or otherwise?
I want to read f- actually read 15 books this year. Because last year that was my goal. This year I'm gonna actually do it.
Yeah. Bro, I know people who are clocking in like 50. I'm like, what are you doing? My mom.
That's
And my mom
crazy.
has a life. I witness her live her life and go to her job. And like, I like some people, they just are, they operate differently, which is like fine. I just like don't think I've accepted that yet. That
Yeah.
like I read slowly and
I think
that's my
that's a
tea for
great,
life.
I think reading is a great way to spend your time. I think I just don't know, because if I gave up the hours of the day that I'm on my phone and instead read a book in that time, I would probably be clocking in 50 books as well.
I don't even think so. I literally don't. I mean, I think if I gave up all of my hobbies,
Yeah,
I
that's
could
true.
clock into 50 books, but I just have other things I want to be doing and all of my friendships.
That's true, yeah.
But like, I mean, I don't know.
But I would
People are
definitely
like,
be
you're
reading.
crazy. You're crazy. Like, I knew this one girl I went to school with, like, no one has ever made me feel worse about herself. Like, no fault of hers at all. Um, but we were just like talking about books and talking about Infinite Jest came up because I think it was when I had like just started reading it. And she was like, "Oh yeah, like I've, heard a lot about that book. Like, should I read it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, like it's good. You should give it a try." And then like a week later, she came back having finished it, and I was like, "Don't speak to me. Like I can't." Like
That's crazy.
I was like, "Good for you, girl. Like that's awesome." You're on roids though.
Yeah, something
I
like
was
that.
not natty.
That's not natty.
Um,
Some of these readers are not natty.
mm-mm.
Okay, well, anyways, it's the new freaking year. Like that means anything.
Clock it.
Like literally clock,
Like literally clock that. Clock that.
literally clock. Wait, that's my clock impression.
You take the clock, but if you don't download it onto the desktop, how it's not going to enter your life.
Wait, I just got that in the biggest way.
Hmm.
Okay, bye.
Bye.